Hello everyone. I'm Tejaswini. We will be having a session for on the topic Big Data for SDGs. Now here SDGs stands for Sustainable Development Goals. Hands-on session. This is Tejaswini Srivastava and I have already addressed the United Nations General Assembly headquarters in the UN ones on this very particular topic. So I'll be helping you out and briefing you about what it is all about. Okay. So when we listen to the term big data, what comes to our mind? Like big and data, right? What is data? Data is raw facts and figures, and big, like a huge amount. Like, we as humans are, occupying Earth, and each human on an average produces 2 petabytes of data annually. So can you just imagine 2 petabytes of data per human, and then we have it for our entire life, because ऐसा तो नहीं है कि हम data बनाएंगे then we'll leave. We need something to manage. We need things that have to be there to manage, organize this data. So what happens is we have a term called big data. When big data comes into play, what happens is, like you can see on the screen, I have mentioned all the facts that the volume of data in world is increasing exponentially. What's happening is we are a land with ever growing population, and our data, like data includes everything. Like let's take a very rough example, India, very very mainstream example, and a rough one as well at the same time. India has a very huge population, which accounts to be having driving licenses, vehicles, then we have phone numbers, then we have internet, then we have so many things. Like, and there should be something to manage it, organize it, right? So there here's when big data comes into play. Big data refers to the huge deluge of digital data. Like जितना भी digital data है जो अभी के टाइम पे, उसको एक साथ जो हम जब उसको बोलते हैं, it is known as the big data, right? So it is even estimated that 90% of data in the world has been created in the past 2 years. Like from the past 2 years, we have seen जब से 4G आया, 5G आया has come into play. What is happening is the amount of data has just tripled itself. So the data is increasing on a very exponential rate. So, and of this data exhaust, collectively is comprising of interactions with digital products or services, including mobile phones, credit cards, and social media. You are all aware of Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, and they are producing data in petabytes per minute. Can you just imagine how much data is being produced? And we need something. So this huge amount of data, when it comes into play, it is totally accounted as big data, right? So the data revolution. What happens is, we have all heard about the term green revolution, white revolution. What it meant? It meant some sort of kranti, right? So data revolution came into play when advancement in technology and computer made it possible to process and analyze this huge amount of data in a real time. The crux of this data revolution was the computers, when there was an advancement in all the technologies which we are processing as of now, right? When this happened, so उस टाइम पे जो डेटा को एक रियल टाइम में प्रोसेस करना, एनालाइज करना, सॉर्ट करना, and then adding depth, nuance, and to survey data with official stats, right? So when this came into play, data revolution started. Opportunities, like abhi I told you that this is a webinar on big data for SDGs, right? When big data came, समथिंग जब डेटा सुनाई दिया तो बहुत सारे थॉट्स प्रो किए होंगे माइंड में कि डेटा मीन्स डेटा must be linked with this, would have been linked with that, would have been linked with this, right? So data is the lifeblood of decision making and raw material for accountability. This is a very shorted quote from the United Nations paper, which states data is the lifeblood of decision making and raw material for accountability, right? Today in the private sector, analysis of big data is commonplace, with consumer profiling, personalized services, and predictive analysis being used for marketing, advertising, and management. Similar techniques could be adopted to gain real-time insights into people's well-being and to target aid interventions to vulnerable groups. New sources of data such as satellite data, new technologies, and new analytical approaches, if applied responsibly, can enable more agile, efficient, and evidence-based decision making and can better measure progress on Sustainable Development Goal SDGs in a way that is both inclusive and fair. What this statement in a crux wants to say that data is the backbone of everything as of now, right? So what's happening is, if this data is utilized in a very productive manner, then only we can just say that we are using it in a judicious manner, we are producing good out of it, right? And if this data is being produced in a way or being used in a way that it is giving us something very fruitful, we can make it more leaned towards sustainable development. Now what sustainable development means? Sustainable development means a kind of growth where we as human have to live in a way that there is minimal amount of wastes. That is what the book definition says, right? But we being spread all over the globe, the definition varies in different ways. So when I talk about sustainable development goals, so these are the goals that the United Nations, like I hope many of you must be aware what United Nations is. So to those who are not, let me just brief you once. United Nations is a peacekeeping organization which was founded after the Second World War in order to maintain peace and harmony amongst nations, and to maintain this body is fully functional to look after all the issues and agendas and problems which other countries are facing. So this is what the United Nations does. So the first goal, no poverty. We know that that the world is still facing poverty. Poverty is a main issue which, like, 700 million people still live in extreme poverty. Like, can you imagine? Extreme poverty, they have nothing to eat, nothing to wear, all they live is on donations. So United Nations aims at zero poverty or no poverty as its first goal. The second goal is zero hunger, right? There are 821 million people who are undernourished. Matlab, you can say, there are people, this is COVID is spreading, right? So वो main उन लोगों को affect कर रहा है जिनकी immunity कम है. And immunity क्यों कम है? Because they don't have proper diet. They are more prone to diseases, and if they don't have a proper immunity, they are not getting proper nutrition and they are malnourished, undernourished. This is what calls for so many problems, right? So many health related issues or diseases. The third goal is good health and well-being. So vaccinations resulted in 80% drop in measles death between 2000 and 2017. This was a stat given in 2017, stating that when people were more prone to vaccines, मतलब जब उन्हें हमें वैक्सीन देनी शुरू की, the rate of measles, not only measles, so many different diseases have reduced to a rate where it can be controlled. Earlier it was not under our control, so somewhere or the other the third goal is still being achieved. Now the fourth goal says quality education. Yeah, so what so when we say quality education, it's clear for all of us. We all are studying somewhere in a good private university, a government university, a college, a school, a tuition. We have online platforms like YouTube, where, like, for example, now you're learning about big data for sustainable development goals. Platforms like these so that you can learn. But at the same time, when we look to the other side, at the other side of the coin, we find that there are still people who don't have any resources to study anything, they have nothing to explore, expand, or gain their knowledge, because they are so poverty stricken and resource stricken, they cannot think about it, right? So their fourth goal is quality education. This aims at 617 million children and adolescents lack minimum proficiency in reading and mathematics. Like, see, let's face it, maths is the one of the most difficult subjects of all time, right? Yet the most important one. Without mathematics, the world we'll never know at which velocity or which angle the globe is rotating, right? But still, we have a glimpse of what's going on. But to some children, if you even hand over them a book, they'll not be able to read or tell that what's going on and what's not, because they're so education stricken, they're so opportunity stricken that they cannot even think about it, right? The fifth goal is gender equality. See, gender equality is a very broad spectrum which states that there should be equality between men and women, right? So we have already seen a society which is all the time male dominating, but now the tables have turned. We are experiencing, we are witnessing women coming out and standing out on their own foot. They are working with in coordination with shoulders of the men. मतलब कहते हैं ना हिंदी में कंधे से कंधा मिला के चल रहे. That's what is happening now. So fifth goal is being somewhat achieved. All right. So, but still, what this says, one out of 3 women experience physical and sexual violence. We have seen so many negative news headlines coming on our newspaper. We are going through it. We are having our eyes over it. Still we neglect it, and we never raise some voice or something so that we could rage. So United Nations set up its goal for gender equality. Next is the sixth goal is clean water and sanitation. Water scarcity still affects 40% of the world's population. There are people who bathe once a month just to save water, whereas we bathe almost twice a day. Still, it's not it is not equal justice. We are not providing them justice. There is someone who is bathing once a month and using minimal amount of water they can, but at the same time we are wasting water. We are planting, we are giving wasting waters. We are bathing twice a week. We are using twice a day. We are using it in the kitchen, then we are using it to clean our floors, everything. So there are still people who don't have access to clean water. They are taking it out from some range, then they are boiling and using it. or maybe they're using it as it is, which may lead to, some of the skin disease or inhygienic diseases, and still they don't have sanitation among for the same. The next goal is affordable and clean energy. 3 billion people still lack clean cooking fuels and technologies. We are able to cook on, nowadays we have this gas pipeline, we have LPG, then we have this induction, but there are still people who are seriously unable to get access to all of this. They are still using primitive measures and ways to, as in how to create and how to use these data, because these resources, because they are new to this. They don't have any access to all of these opportunities. So, eighth goal, which is most important, decent work and economic growth. Right? 1/5 of young people are still not in education, employment, or training. There is 1/5 of our young generation who is not able to study, who is not into employment or any sorts of training. Right? There is still a major fraction, because young people comprise of more than half of the world's population today. And if they are unemployed and they are deprived and deployed of all the opportunities, you cannot think of how devastating and tremendous loss we are facing as of now. Because if they won't work, we'll of course be facing some issues due to their behavior, and most importantly, the downfall in the economy. Right? We are still facing downfall in the Indian economy today. The economy has fallen so much so that we do not stand anywhere on the global index now. Next goal is industry, innovation, and infrastructure. Still, there are cities, there are places which have no roads, no water, no sanitation, no electricity, no access to clean air and stuff like that. United Nations is still aiming to industrialize, to innovate, and to enhance the infrastructure, so much so that all of these issues faced today, they are not faced afterwards. Okay. Next comes reduce. The 10th goal is reduce inequalities. What happens is, there are still marginalized people in our society, right? Poorest 40% of the population today earns less than 25% of the global income. Can you imagine? Like, the amount we spend on our daily munching and brunching is what they are earning. So you can imagine, like, how much inequality is there between the rich and the poor, right? So this is what the United Nations aims to overcome. The next goal is sustainable cities and communities. Now, sustainable, I told, the word sustainable itself means creating zero waste, right? So 9 out of 10 urban residents breathe polluted air. We have so many. We have bronchitis, we have cancers, we have asthma, we have lung cancer. Everything is just because of the polluted air we are facing today. And today, the governments and the humans, they have taken this measure just in case we can provide a fraction of, because we cannot be what the mother nature offers us. But since it has been polluted, it has been tampered, so we can take our own measures to control it. The 12th goal says responsible consumption and production. We all know there is utmost increase in the global warming now. In the years 2015 to 2017, there was a tremendous amount of increase in global warming. It was all because of burning of plastics and our waste that was coming out of our homes. We were not reusing it. We were not recycling it. So this accounted a lot of waste, a lot of waste on our accounts. And what happened is, it got accumulated in a way that now it has become a burden on Mother Earth. The 13th goal says climate action. I covered this in the previous goal as well. Now over here it's written, global emissions of carbon dioxide CO2 have increased by almost 50% since 1990. So can you imagine, like, we have the use of vehicles, then there are chlorofluorocarbons coming out from our air conditioners, our refrigerators, the aerosol sprays we use. So there is a lot of pollution which has increased due to the human activity today. Goal 14 is life below water. There are 3 billion people who depend on marine and coastal biodiversity for their livelihoods, and still we have seen that the marine life, diving, we once or twice in 2 months or 3 months, we come across an article in the newspaper. Flipping through the pages, we come across an article stating a whale or a shark has been found dead on the coast of this city or this state. We are finding this. It's all because they are galloping, they're swallowing the plastic which the humans are using for their benefit, and once it's over, they're just dumping it into the seas. Not only plastics, they are moving the industrial wastes into it and making the sea polluted. Life on land. So 80% of all terrestrial species of animals and plants and insects, they have a home in these forests. So over there, there were fires. This was in January we had a Australian bushfire, and what happened is it destroyed a major amount of lifestyle there. We came across articles, we scrolled through our feeds, we found the injured animals, we found articles. They were so hard, they were so devastating, they were so heart shaking. So what happened was, it was all because of the human activity. The life on land was somewhere or the other compromised because of our activities. So the bushfire had to occur. The 16th goal is peace, justice, and strong institutions. This is a very important and the crucial of all times. Standing up for human rights. There are still people who are moving here and there for justice to be served to them. There are still people who lack their basic fundamental and human rights. They have to reach out places in order to achieve, in order to get what they want. So this is the 16th goal, is so much so important that we need we actually need to stand up for our own fundamental rights. Whatever is going on, we have to fight for it. There is a population increasing so much so that we have to make sure that rights of no individual is being missed, right? Goal 17 is partnerships with states. Achieving the SDGs could open up to 12 trillion US dollars market opportunities and create 380 million new jobs by 2030. So in order to achieve, when we'll achieve the sustainable development goal, 380 million new jobs opportunities by 2030. So can you imagine how the development goal is going to change the world, change all the domain stricken people and their lives, and getting them and helping them reach this. So these were the goals. So now you must be thinking, like, what is the SDGs has to do with the big data, right? Big data is something which is telling us that what's going on across the globe. that data is helping us account what's wrong and what's right in the society, right? And since this comes into play, there are risks which have to be uh, taken care of. Since it's data, right, it has a lot of information about humans, starting from the very personal one to medical, from their medical to their financial bank statements. Everything is being recorded in a data, and that data collectively today is known as big data. But at the same time, we have to ensure that this data does not get into wrong hands. It is not being misused. It is not being uh, malhandled. It is someone is not using it to blackmail anyone or stuff like that, right? So we have to make sure this. And there is also a risk of growing inequality and bias. Major gaps are already opening up between the data haves and data have nots, right? So this is what is from the digital footprints even people leave behind, and from sensor enabled objects, or is inferred via algorithms, right? So there are a lot of risks associated with what we will be doing, how big data will be helping us in achieving SDGs. So this, like, once we jot down the risks, we can work taking care of them, right? So there is another short extract from an article. I'll read it out and then I'll explain it to you. In 2015, the world embarked on a new development agenda underpinned by the Sustainable Development Goals. Achieving these goals requires integrated action on social, environmental, and economic challenges, with the focus on inclusive, participatory development that leaves no one behind. Right? In 2015, a new development agenda was made, right, for the SDGs. These achieving them requires a lot of social, environmental, and economic challenges. Like social, there will be of course people opposing it. There will be a lot of environmental changes, because I believe out of the 17, 4 or 5 were related to environment. And we have to focus in a development so that no one is left out, no one is left behind, because the 16th goal states that fundamental rights. So we have to make sure that while we are achieving this, no one is left behind. Then the next says critical data for global, regional, and national development policy making is still lacking. Yes, we need a data which is utmostly required to make a policy. पॉलिसी हम कैसे बनाएंगे जब तक हमें उसका बैकग्राउंड ही नहीं पता होगा? तो how are we going to even make the policy, right? Many governments still do not have access to adequate data on their entire population. गवर्नमेंट को ही नहीं पता है कि उनकी जो उनका जो क्राउड है, उनकी जो जनता है, उसमें क्या चल रहा है, because they don't have access to this adequate amount of data. And this is the most important time when big data comes into play, right? Big data nahi hai, to how will they manage data? How are they going to access it? How are they going to process it? How are they going to extract things from it which they required in making a policy? So this is particularly true for the poorest and most marginalized, the very people that leaders will need to focus on if they are to achieve zero extreme poverty and zero emissions by 2030, and to leave no one behind in the process. Again, this article is again and again mentioning to leave no one behind, right? Big data can shed light on disparities in societies that were previously hidden, right? जो इतनी सारी चीजें थी जो अभी तक hidden थी, उस पे big data can just throw a spotlight on that, and it can just seriously tell us that where we are lacking, what's going wrong, right? For example, women and girls who often work in informal sector or at home suffer social constraints on their mobility and are marginalized in both private and public decision making, right? आज भी, believe it or not, होता है. There is a organization, there is something, women are being marginalized unless and until a woman is dominating and possesses a very charming personality. She is always dominated with the decision making. The decision making is always done by the other officials, other male officials of the same organization, right? So much of the big data with the most potential to be used for public good is collected by the private sector. As such, public-private partnerships are likely to become more widespread. The challenge will be ensuring they are sustainable over time and that clear frameworks are in place to clarify roles and the expectations on all sides. This is what the main crux is. They're trying to say that big data will be analyzing, will be putting a development into play so that it clarifies all the roles and expectations from all sides, leaving no one behind, so that their fundamental right is not at all exploited, right? The role of the United Nations. So the United Nations today promises and aims at achieving all these goals, right? United Nations has even started an initiative named the Global Pulse. Is an innovative initiative from the United Nations Secretary General on Data Science. Global Pulse promotes awareness of the opportunities big data presents for sustainable development and humanitarian action, right? For this humanitarian action, the United Nations has started an initiative named the Global Pulse from the Secretary General of the United Nations, which provides more opportunities to big data for sustainable development and humanitarian action, develops high impact analytic solutions for human and the government particles through its work and data sciences center, right? Or Pulse Lab. So there are so many things the United Nations Global Pulse today is aiming at, right? This is, now I believe you all must have got the glimpse of what sustainable development means, what big data means, how both are linked, how big data is going to help, and how it's such a crucial issue, so much so that the United Nations today had to take the initiative for the same, right? So that was all which I had to